All right, great. Thanks for joining me today. How you doing? You doing
I'm
okay?
doing really good. Yeah, it's morning, so I'm a little slow, but it's good.
So, what's your mornings like?
Oh,
What was your morning like
sorry.
today, knowing you had a?
It wasn't any different. Most of my rights, typically rights in Nashville. It's so funny with every generation they get pushed back an hour. So now we start at 11. I feel like the standard time, people used to meet at 9 to write. Now my age group are like, I will meet at 11. It's fine. So usually I
So,
just
what's
wake
your?
up and like take care of my dogs and go to a write.
So, when you don't have a right, kind of what's your morning look like that way? Like, if you're just like, okay, I'm free all day today. What am I gonna do?
If
What
I'm
is
free all
Allie
day
gonna do?
today, I'm gonna sleep till like 9:30, and then I'm gonna go to the
Hmm.
gym, um, and then probably just like do house stuff, like around the house. Like there's always laundry and those kinds of things to do, and then I'll usually take just a little bit of time in the afternoon to just learn a new song that I like. That's about it.
So, what have you been doing during this quarantine type of thing that we're in? Like, are you still
Right.
going to rights, or are you doing it like over Skype or Zoom?
We've done a little bit of both. We've, especially now, within the last 2 months, we've started getting back to in-person rights and those kinds of things. And then before that, when it all really started to shut down, um, tried to do a couple Zoom rights, and those kinds of things, which was really, really tough for me, only because these specific rights were ones that like I'd never met them before, and so that's why I didn't want to cancel, because of Corona. If it was one of my friends, I'd probably be like, we'll wait till the world comes back around, But since I didn't know
Yeah.
these writers yet, and they'd been scheduled for so long, we would try and do the Zoom right, and that was really, really hard, just meeting somebody for the first time, and sometimes it would lag, and one person's trying to play guitar, and the other one is too, and it's just so the Zoom rights were really tough for me. So I haven't been writing too much, but like I went to work with my husband for like 2 months during this time. He does like landscaping and stuff, or did at the time, and literally just made life work, like everybody else did. I didn't do too much. I got sick for a couple of weeks. I was very lucky; it wasn't a bad case or anything like that, and life went on. So that's what I've been doing.
You had COVID. Is
I did,
that what you said?
yeah.
Oh wow. So is it as bad as everyone says it is? Because I don't know how bad.
I don't want to say no, because like people have, lost people to this, but like
Right, right,
my
right, right, right,
case
right,
was
right.
not bad at all. It was just, I think I slept for 3 of the probably 5 or 6 days, and then
Hmm.
you just literally can't breathe, like walking from the couch to the kitchen
Yeah.
and back, you're like breathing really heavy. I had like a
Mm.
really, really bad sore throat and that kind of thing, but like, and I had a fever for maybe a day. Like it was basically a flu, it didn't hit me any different than a flu did.
Yeah. I kind of around because the corona has been in since like late 2019, I think.
Right.
And I think I may have contacted it like late November, early
Yeah.
December, because it was a couple days, maybe even a couple weeks before Christmas,
Yeah.
and we were going up to my grandma's house up north, and we were supposed to be, doing a roof or fixing her shingles or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember I had been sick for a couple of days with a cold, and I had gotten up there, and like immediately fell ill. Like I was on like a
Really.
103-degree fever. It felt like I was at death's door. Like
Gosh.
for like 5 days, however long we were there, I was in the bed, wasn't moving, didn't eat a thing, and then came home, went to the doctor the same day we came home, and they were like, okay, you've got a very, very bad case of pneumonia,
Yeah.
but the same symptoms that the people from Corona have are what I had. And so I'm sitting there thinking, not saying that I had it, but it's like
Right.
there's a good possibility it happened.
I mean, I can basically tell you, obviously, I'm not a doctor, but if you lost your taste and smell, you had it. Like, that is the one universal symptom of everybody with COVID. And it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of musicians, November through February here in Nashville, were really, really sick, me included. I lost
Yep.
my taste and smell in February. I went to the doctor. It was negative strep, negative flu, way worse than
Mm-hmm.
bronchitis, but not pneumonia. They just called it walking pneumonia. They gave us a steroid pack and an inhaler, and that was it, right? And a lot of us had it. And so when I tested positive corona, this like early this summer, I asked her, I was like, listen, everything that's happening right now, including the taste and smell, happened in February. Like, could I have had this twice now? And she goes, yeah, dude, we don't know anything about corona. Like, you could easily have had it twice.
Yeah.
And so that was really scary for me now, having had it and just that small possibility of having it twice. I'm not going to say I have, because no one can say that for sure. But like now I'm worried about getting it a third time. You know what I mean? A lot of my friends in Nashville who have gotten COVID, they're just like out doing life now because they're like, we can't get it again. And I'm like, I don't know, guys. You could probably get it again.
That hasn't been proven that you can't get it.
Right. And if it's like a flu, the strand's ever changing, like, yeah. And what I was really, really sick in February and not as sick this time. So it's like the strand can change just a little bit, you know, and you can get sick again. So I think my friend's crazy. I'm still staying home and like wearing a mask all the time and doing all those things.
Oh my God. Yeah. Because it was just so bad when I had it. I'm just thinking, well, if I did have it, I don't want that again. So like,
exactly.
I'm constantly Germ-Xing, disinfectant spray, wearing a mask. Doesn't matter if I'm going to the gas station. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm gonna do it to avoid, you know, touching hands. Right. I'm not gonna do it because I'm a germaphobe myself, you know, just a little bit. But it's like this has made it 10 times worse.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that.
So I was this morning. I was up at like 5 o'clock this morning, prepping and just all over the social media. And my friend that came to me was like, "Hey, watch this short video." And you'd mentioned Zoom before. And I don't know how to use Zoom. I use Skype just because it's easier, one click. Yeah. And it was about how the social media, the Skype calls, and even the phones will be very progressed in the next 3 years. Like they were projecting that there's going to have like just a little eyeglass over one eye, and then you think about a person like, oh my God, she is so hot, he is so hot. And then it's immediately going to go to that person that you thought about, glasses. And I'm like, that's going to backfire so quick.
It's not even so quick.
That's going to back. But I didn't realize this, that 3G, 4G, that's considered third generation, fourth generation on like cell phone towers. And they're working on like 5G and 6G. Blew my mind.
I mean, if you want to really talk about some crazy stuff, have you read into the, I don't think radiation's the right word, but have you read about the, like waveform effects of 5G, like on our bodies? Like put yourself in a microwave. It's like just throwing yourself in a microwave. That's what I hear, but, and then there's always those studies that go against it. But I've heard it a lot from people that are trying to sell products that protect you from 5G. So obviously take it with a grain of salt. But that's a big like conspiracy argument, like just amongst like some people that I know about 5G. So the whole world of technology in the next 3 to 5 years, I can't even wrap my mind around what's going to happen.
And it's also like the wires that they do for like 5G, 4G and the cell phone towers go underneath the ocean. And I'm sitting there thinking, one, how did they get there without getting electrocuted? How are they letting people swim in the ocean? How is this happening? And it's just one big rabbit trail after another that's just like, oh, I have to stop now.
Yeah.
If not, I'm not going to be on track for the podcast. And I just have to stop.
Well, in this conversation right here, this is when your little glasses in 3 years freak out because you just thought about 30 things in literally 2 seconds. And it's like, you're seeing electrified people. You're seeing it's just a rabbit hole.
But see, that's the thing as well, is my mind is constantly going like from anxiety and stuff. It's like my brain doesn't ever shut up. So if I get that, it's just going to immediately start smoking as soon as I put it on and connect it. You know, it's just it's one of those things that's freaky to think about, but also kind of interesting and entertaining at the same time.
Right. Well, I think we're so used to it, you know, with the amount of things. Like you're right. Like my brain does not stop. Like I'm thinking when I sleep, I don't sleep very well because, you know, I'll just be waking up planning something. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's really interesting just with our generation, how like that's how our minds work. We've had cell phones since we were like, I don't know, 15, 16. It's insane.
And especially like the fast length of like how fast like different apps take off, like TikTok. Like 1 minute I heard about it, and then like the next day it was like the biggest thing on the planet Earth. And then now
to me, because I don't keep up with trends or anything, but I had TikTok 2 years ago and no one else was on it except for the kids that did all the cosplay makeup, which I really like. And now you go on there and there are 12-year-olds that have more talent in their pinky than I do in my entire body. And it's like, way to go, everybody on TikTok.
But let me tell you, I will be on TikTok. I don't ever post anything. I just like it for the videos
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a big like like people falling. You fall
Yeah.
in front of me, I'm gonna laugh immediately. Doesn't matter. But I will be on TikTok and think I'm on there 10 minutes, and I look at the clock. It's been like an hour and a half, and I'm just like, how is that possible?
It's
That's where these like it's nuts because my cousin, I think she's like 5 or 6, and she's kind of like a sister, and I don't think she can literally turn on a light switch. It's just Alexa, turn on your light. It's just, and it's just, I'm like, they can work an iPad better than I can. Like, I don't even know how to work my cell phone. I have no clue how this thing works. Don't want to know how it works. But you ask a 5-year-old, and they're immediately going to tell you, oh, you go over here, go to settings, go to this, go to that. It's
yeah.
just nuts what's going to happen. And it's scary because it's like, well, when my nephew has kids, where are we going to be in the future? Like, is it really going to be flying cars? Is it really going? Because think
Right.
about it. We have Teslas. They drive themselves.
Yeah.
So in the next 5 years, it's possible that Elon Musk could create a flying plane car or something.
I know. I'm telling you, the one thing everyone fails to realize when you talk about flying cars, ain't nothing going to change if you take it into the air traffic wise. Right? It's
Oh
not
no.
like, right? It's not like it's going to be free mayhem and you can literally drive your little air car wherever you want, right? I thought about this a lot and it just bugs me. We're just going to have traffic in the air now.
Well, here's my thing about that as well is if you're really flying in the air, there's going to be traffic, but are they going to allow people, old school people, to drive on wheels on the road, on the freeway? Like, are freeways even going to be a thing then?
Well, that's what I'm thinking too, as far as like where you can drive, because it doesn't make any sense to be able to just drive wherever you want over like a neighborhood. Like if your car stalls out in the air and you land on a house, So it's like there's so many things with flying cars, man. I just don't know about it. Does it make sense?
It's like, because I tell myself, I'm like, okay, let's watch the Jetsons and let's find out how much they accurately got right.
Yeah.
It's a strange world and it's only getting weirder by
Yeah.
the moment.
I think that's been true forever, though.
So you got a new song out, which I was asked to promote on here. That's what you're promoting. Is called "Ain't the Only Hell My Mama Raised." So real quick, talk about this song, and we'll dive back in more conversations.
Yeah, I mean, my there's this photograph of my mama on a grasshopper zero turn, which is a lawnmower. I didn't realize people didn't know that. But in the first verse, it talks about my mom being on a grasshopper zero turn, and it's
Wait,
just
wait, 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 wait. What didn't people know was the lawnmower? Zero turn?
they didn't. Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't know
Oh,
the lawnmower, and
okay, all right.
yeah, and so which was so funny, just because from this song I've had all these conversations, and people will be like, "What is that anyway?" And I'm like, "Bro, it's a lawnmower." But anyway, there's this photograph of my mom that I've seen my whole life. She's on her little lawnmower. She's got a little Budweiser bikini top on and like one of those Ace Hardware like gardening belts on. And I'd seen it 1,000 times. My mom's a babe and all those kinds of things, but just as of recently, I just saw it differently. I was looking at that picture and I realized for the first time in my life that my mom was a whole woman before she was a parent, and like I'm very bad about just assuming that my parents were put on this earth to take care of me because I'm pretty sure that's it, right? They just got to make sure I'm good. That's what they do. But I forgot about this woman that my mom used to be, and so that's what the whole first verse is about, and it just goes into talk about all the things that I learned from my mom and all the things that I do and how I am the hell-raising woman I am today because my mom was a crazy hell-raising young woman, and she was bold and beautiful, and I have two really, really amazing moms, and I just feel like it's really easy to get sidetracked with that and just always think about what they can, that they're my mom and that's their job, and I just forget, about these roles. And it's been really special watching my sister become a mom and like seeing the woman that she
Mm.
kind of left behind to put that hat on, and to become a mom and do all those things. And so just a huge tribute to moms and who they used to be and who they still are now, and how we are who we are because of who our mamas are, and just this whole thing about that. But it was really cool. In the second verse, I got to sit down with my mom and just talk to her about all the stuff that she used to do. And then I realized that everything she used to do is stuff that I was not allowed to do, like ever. And so that's where that tongue-in-cheek chorus kind of comes in of just like, you can't expect me to learn from something I've never tried, and it's just putting that reassurance back in your mom that you've got this, and she was an amazing woman and I'm an amazing woman and I can do this and those kinds of things. So it's just all for moms.
what's interesting to me about moms and motherhood is you never there are a few cases, very rare, but you never really hear about the mom running off. And I think that's the beauty of how, like, for me, for example, it's like, well, do I want a woman that I'm going to grow old with to be like my mom because hardworking, loving, never ran off? And it's like, or do I want the opposite of that? Like, it's just this weird mind game you play, because it's like, I've known that my whole life. I like it, but also you want to change it up a little bit and do something different. But the
It's
whole
so
concept
interesting,
of yeah,
and it's just, it's really interesting, and especially to look at, I do that with myself all the time. Like, do I want to be my mom? Because I find myself being just like my parents all the time. Like, I find myself believing in the same things that they do, kind of without thinking about it. You know what I mean? Like, just all of these things that are implemented in your head as a child and as you grow up, and these people that you like impression on and all those things. So I feel the same way sometimes. It's like, am I this way because this is something I was just kind of put into, you know what I mean? And like those kinds of things. And or like, is this who I am? So I think there's tons of self-discovery on both aspects between who you want to love and who you want to be. But I think that's an interesting thought.
I was looking at your social media. I think that's where I saw it on. I saw that you did goat yoga.
I did. I almost put on my
What
goat yoga
exactly?
t-shirt today.
What exactly is goat yoga? Is it
It
just
is
yoga with
a
goats?
it's just a way for white girls to take cute goat pictures and weird poses and put it on Instagram. Like, that's 100% what it's for. Like, you get there and because I did it the day before my wedding, like just to take my girls, my bridal party, because they're all from Oklahoma and I got married here in Tennessee. So when they all came into town, I was like, let's find something fun to do the day before. It's like relaxing, spa, goat yoga. We went with goat yoga. But like, basically you get there and the instructor's like, okay, we're gonna do super basic poses that allow a goat to jump on your back. We'll let all the goats in, and they just got a bunch of little pygmy goats, and they just like kind of taunt them with food. They jump them on your back, you take a bunch of pictures of yourself. It's like, it's not as cool as it sounds, but we had a blast. Like, the goats were awesome.
But it's interesting because if you're really doing yoga with a goat, how is that stress free? Like, how are you releasing the toxin when you got hooves in your back of your neck and on your head and they're
That
jumping up
is
and
true.
down?
Mid time, like midway through, she goes, "When are you getting married?" And I had like a tank top on, and I was like, "Oh, tomorrow."
Right,
And she freaked out, and she got all the goats off me, and she goes, "Sweet girl, you're gonna have like hoof bruises on your back tomorrow." And I was like, "They're not that
right.
heavy." And she goes, "I know they don't feel that heavy, but like, you really are gonna have." And we had to put like foundation on my back the next day, to cover, because I had like just tiny ones. They weren't big or anything.
Uh,
But it's just fun. Like, it was just fun. And I got married in October, so they were doing like a Halloween thing. So all the goats had costumes on it. So I don't know if you noticed in the picture, but
oh
the goat
wow,
that's on my back has like 12 legs because he's a spider. And everyone's like, that doesn't
gotcha.
look right. And I'm like, he's in a costume. Like, it was Halloween. But it was awesome. I loved it. I'd recommend Go Yoga to anybody.
Because the reason I bring that up is because I recently started yoga about 10 or 11 weeks ago doing DDP yoga, Diamond Dallas Page.
Okay.
And I thought I was going to hate it, and I did hate it for the first couple of
Of
weeks.
course.
But
Yeah.
but then it's like now, if I just want to do the beginning basic thing, I don't have to watch the DVDs or get on DDP, the app or anything. I can just literally go, okay, let's go up, go down, breathe, downward
Right.
dog. But it's also like you get so stable at this one area that you're at that you don't want to move to the next because you're just so comfortable. But I think that's also with life. Like, you're so stuck here in this one town here, and you don't want to move off because you
Yeah.
know that's very uncomfortable, and you know you don't have no stability.
Yeah.
You know, so I think when people do yoga, I think that's kind of how they look at their own life, because they're like, okay, I'm gonna easily move on, quick, 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 quick. But then they move on, quick, quick, quick. Then they wind up failing and falling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you keep, it's just one of those weird things that I compare yoga and life to at the same time.
Yeah. I hate yoga because I've never made it past the 2 weeks. There's nothing flexible about me, but like, I'm a lifter and I do like to run a little bit, but like, I'm the same way, like with weights. Like, I go to the gym every day and it's the same thing. It's like, one, if you do go too fast, too quick, you are going to burn out because you don't have that core yet, right, to lift while you're lifting. So same exact thing as yoga, and those kinds of things. But yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, we all get comfortable, and I was listening to a sermon the other day through Elevation Church that really, really talked about that, and it's just like sometimes if you feel like you're lacking in your life or if things are being taken away from you, it's just that pressure to move on, right? I think pressure's always been such an interesting word, right? You got to put pressure on a coal to make a diamond. You have to, like the swords forged from the fire. There's all these uncomfortable things that push us out of our comfort zones in order to like excel and grow, like you said. So, hey, power to you with yoga. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you just go and you get burned out. Like I was doing this podcast, this is about 3 years old. I think is how old this podcast is. But about 3 or 4 months ago, before the beginning of the year, I was just nailing out these interviews one after another. It had like 15 in like 3 different days. And I remember the feeling of the fourth day when I finally had a break of just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. It was
Yeah.
just the wheels were turning so fast and they were grinding up each other. You had to get some oil just to loosen them up. It's rough when you're learning, because once you're learning, you really don't know how to do it. Like, does that make sense? Like, you don't
Yeah.
know if you're just now learning, you're easily going to go, oh, I love this. I'm going to do it all the time, all the time, all the time. And then and people like dieting. Like when people go on diet, so like I'm cutting everything out at once, and my initial reaction is, no, you need to first start with water, take
Yeah.
out the sodas. Once you get that down, 2 weeks, cut out sugar. Then the next couple of weeks, cut out bread. And then
Right.
just generate, because that way you're not going to fail as easy or fall as
Right.
hard. It's just one of those things that's just, burnouts are terrible to get. I've never been
Burnout.
drunk, but I assume it's kind of like a hangover.
Yeah, I guess it would be. I'm a bad drinker. Like I haven't figured out my body. I try to stay away from it. But I think yeah, I mean you're right. I mean burnouts are really tough and it makes you so reluctant to start something new as well. Like not only does it affect the season you're in, but it makes it really tough to move into a new one. I'm that way with like DIY projects. I'm always like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna remodel my house, and then the first time I start doing something that I didn't like properly learn about, I just get burnt out and quit and get frustrated. So yeah, that's human nature for sure. But burnouts are tough.
I've never had a drink of alcohol in my life, never done any kind of drug. So let's say if I was to today just decide to give up the ghost and drink, what do you think would be the one drink a person that's never had should try just to give it a taste?
Oh well, I mean, I would just assume something sweet. Um, when I was a kid, I think one of the first things I ever ordered was, like when you're a kid, you always get like Shirley Temples or something if you're trying to be fancy at a restaurant, right? It's just Sprite with like cherry flavoring, like poured in.
Sure,
So take that
sure.
one step farther and put like Malibu rum in it because it's coconutty, and you're just gonna have a sweet little drink. But if you're asking me, just go straight for tequila. Just go straight in. Get you a big old lime, go straight in for it. That's my drink of choice, and it always kicks my butt. It's always a bad decision.
Tell me about a time that you just went too far in the
Oh,
alcohol stage. Like, was there ever a point where you were just like, I have alcohol poisoning for sure?
there's one actually. There's one, and I have a 4-hour set downtown. I don't remember, and it was my
Mm.
first time playing downtown, and luckily it was Halloween, so there couldn't have been a better
Mm-hmm.
night to do it because I looked like a stormtrooper who got hit by a bus, so it would actually kind of just fit the mold by the end of the night. But me and Deadpool were putting on a concert downtown, and at Luke Bryan's sushi bar at the Sushi Bridge, Luke Bryan's place we have in downtown Nashville, and I think in the first hour and a half. And the stage at Luke's, it's right behind the bar, right? So people are buying you drinks, the bartender's handing them around and giving them to you. And people in Nashville always want to take selfies or boomerangs or whatever it is with the artists as they take their shot, right? So it's not like you can set them down and sit them there. I mean, obviously you can. That's where boundaries as a person comes in. I don't have those. So as soon as they handed me that shot and want to take the video, I was like, let's go. Let's do this. And in the first hour and a half, they bought me 14 tequila shots.
Mm.
And
But
At
is that
one
a lot?
point,
Is that a lot? I'm seriously. I'm
yeah,
asking. Is that a lot?
yeah. So usually I'll take like 3 or 4 tequila shots and be good for a couple hours. I'll have just a nice little buzz and I'll start drinking water. And that's what I do. Like during my 3 hour sets, normally people buy me like 3 to 5 tequila shots. And again, that's within 3 hours. This was within an hour. I had 14, which would be kind of equivalent to just like drinking tequila out of like one of these things or like something. But anyway, long story short, um, I just kind of remember the next morning, like just, I do remember one point during my set looking at Travis and being like, bro, I don't even know what I'm doing. I've got to get off the stage. And he goes, you look and sound and seem fine. Like you just look like you're having fun. So I guess I pulled it off, to be honest, but I have a 4 hour set downtown. I don't remember. Apparently we did a duet that I don't know. And then all those kinds of things. So it worked out really well. I was so embarrassed the next day. I didn't even take my pay. I was so embarrassed and I've never done it again. But it's really interesting that that's what a lot of downtown players do every day. A lot of downtown players black out every single night after their set because people have been buying them drinks for their 4 hours that they've been doing, and that kind of thing. And people love to come to Nashville and see someone who gets rowdy. They love it. Like Morgan Wallen got arrested for public intox, a couple of weeks ago downtown, and
Right.
it's done nothing but just boost him up higher than he already was. Like
Oh yeah.
they love that stuff, and they really, really love it when they're doing it with people of like kind of my caliber who's going to sit with them after the show, and can continue to drink with them or whatever. So I found that alcohol is a really big deal here, like networking wise. I have a couple friends who are artists that don't drink and they have a really, really hard time with it. One, they're like always getting picked on by people to drink with them. But even then two, at the end of the night when everyone's networking and everyone's sloppy, they don't kind of get that. It's almost like they don't, at that point you're just babysitting. You're just always stuck there taking care of everybody else because they're drinking and you're not. And it's really tough for a lot of my friends who don't drink in this town.
I imagine it as accidentally taking too much NyQuil, and you just you're and it's like the middle of the day you accidentally take NyQuil instead of DayQuil, and you're just nodding off every so often. That's what I imagine it's like.
That is what smoking weed is like. Not so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see how much I know.
Yeah, well, hey, if you ever go to Colorado or any of the states where it's legal, that's what I suggest. I don't suggest you going and buying it from somebody crazy in your state that doesn't allow it. I'm all about the legality of it, but that's what you take to sleep. It's nice.
See, I don't have a problem with marijuana because I don't honestly think that's a drug because it's honestly a plant. And so
right, I think it just depends on how it's processed.
Right, but here's my thing with that is I have a lot of artist friends that do smoke it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but I don't like the feeling of being out of my body and not having control. Does that make sense? Like It's kind of like pain. It's like pain meds. I don't really take them that much because I know I will fall asleep. I don't like taking any medicine that's going to make me fall asleep because I know I don't have control over when I go to sleep, when I wake up. Mm-hmm. Like I'm just that OCD about it that I can't stand any of that process that way.
Yeah, so your friends are probably opposite. A lot of us that smoke
and absolutely.
Absolutely. A lot of us who smoke and drink do it to lose control or to numb ourselves or whatever, right? Like that's why they're vices. That's what they're there for. A lot of us take it to pass out so we don't have to think about when we're going to sleep and when we're waking up, So it's so interesting just how people are just different,
It's very different because it's like Upchurch or Big Smoke, who I'm friends with, and it's just like, man, you got to do it because if you don't, then you're not going to live. And it's just like, well, what is pushing me from not doing it? Because you haven't lived until you've had it, and it's like, well, what do you do it for? Do you do it to feel good? Do you do it because you're pain? Do you do it just to fall asleep? And some of them are like, like other artists are like, no, I just do it to do it because it's the cool thing to do.
Yeah,
I've never been the cool one.
But that's what a lot of people do things for, I mean, that's honestly what a lot of that's what Upchurch does a lot of things for, look cool because that's his artist persona. That's what he does, and that makes sense for him.
Yeah.
I don't know Upchurch very well at all. But I know Carly Rogers really, really well, and she's always with Upchurch. But, yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
Carly.
Yeah, Carly and I are best friends.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, we're really good friends. She's on the podcast 3 or 4 times.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Carly, I was talking to her last night about her gold record that she finally got in, and people were
I saw that.
And I was like, bro, that's what happens when you get gold records. People give you crap about it. Like, you're doing everything right. You just do your thing.
Oh my God! Don't put me down that rabbit hole. Do not, because we will be there forever about people giving crap about. it's kind of like people saying you're not country music, and then it's kind of like, well, you're more pop. But then you look at it and you're like, well, isn't country music evolving to kind of the pop type? Do you know what I mean? It's like
that and look at it the other way too. Pop music is popular music, right? So it's
right,
not really a genre.
absolutely,
It was never supposed to be, you know?
absolutely.
I mean, it is
You know,
now
you
for
could
sure.
take.
There's definitely a category, but like, yeah.
I mean, for instance, take jazz music or blues music. Nobody listens to that because it hasn't evolved. It stayed the same for 50, 60, 70 years, you know, and it's I take wrestling for example as well because I'm a big wrestling fan. It's like if we were still stuck in the 70s, those matches are boring to me because it's not, you know, chair shots or blood or stuff like that. You know, it's just
Right.
kind of like a historian type of deal. And I'm like, well, that's a little boring to me because I think how boring would music be any genre if it never changed, if it just
Right.
stayed the same?
Right.
I
And
mean,
I
am I
think
making sense? Does that make sense?
no, it makes perfect sense. And I think it's really interesting coming from the other way too. Like there are some people that you
Right.
don't want to change, right? Like we were talking yesterday about, and no, not putting shame on anybody, but like George Strait, then the stuff he keeps putting out seems like he's trying to keep up with popular times, right? Popular music. And as an artist, that's really good to be aware of that and do stuff. But we all want like George Strait songs, you know? Like if I wanted to listen to a poppy George Strait song, I'd listen to Easton Corbin because they sound exactly the same. You know what I mean? And like that's the age difference between them. So it's almost like you do need some things to stay the same so you can still have them. Like because there are people that are huge, massive jazz fans. You know what I mean? And imagine if that just went
Yeah.
away. You know, so it's like I'm all about the evolution of artists and doing your thing, but I do think you kind of need someone to hold down the home fort. But that's what music is so different, you know, and that's what's cool about music is there's something for everybody.
You know, I kind of disagree with you on the George Strait kind of trying to keep up because I just think he's, and I don't mean this to be a jerk, but I'm just saying I'm thinking he's just so stuck in what he was used to be doing, like like a repetitive thing. Like
Yeah.
for for example, like I grew up on Blake Shelton, like early 2000s. You know,
Mhm.
that was my George Strait, and it was nice to see him go from Old Red Austin to now these more popular pop country type of things and just be like, wow, he can Kenny Chesney, Tim McGraw, for example, they can progress and go up. But and I love George Strait, one of my favorite artists of all time. But he kind of lost me there a couple of years ago when I don't know if you remember he was complaining with Jamie Johnson on a song called They Kicked Me Out of Country, yada
Yeah.
yada yada, and then he's killing country music in the song, but then comes on country radio and is like, "Hey, George Strait, buy my new song, Kicked Out of Country." I don't necessarily think you can do that honestly and have people have respect for you. Like, do you know? You see what I'm saying? I'm not coming
I do.
from
Yeah, I
this
see what
type
you're.
of
No, I
type
totally
of
see what you're saying.
way.
Yeah. No, I get your side. I totally see what you're saying. I don't know if I 100% agree with it, but I totally see it.
Right, right,
Yeah, because it's like who just did it? um Eric Church. You know, Eric Church kind of
right.
just did it with put that in your country, you know? And I do think there is a place for artists to fight for their version of country, but I do also just find it
Absolutely,
frustrating that they find the need that they have to do that. You know what I mean? Like I
absolutely,
do think so, and
absolutely.
especially like and I think it's a little more accurate with what you're saying with the George Strait song specifically because that kind of was a kick in the face to country radio and then going
Right,
on country radio. But I'm also all about like if radio, you know, radio is very very quick to do you wrong. I'll be honest, like because it's a business, you know, and I
absolutely,
think a lot of artists
absolutely.
get really caught up in the emotional networking side of these things with radio stations and then forget that it's a business. They've got other people to play, new artists to take care of, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I get where George gets mad. I get where the radio gets mad. I get all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely,
Yeah. That's
absolutely.
why all of us artists are just like sitting here like, what do we do? Do we speak up for ourselves? Do we go with the flow? You know, like so I think you pick and choose your battles. But I don't
Absolutely.
want to be in any of those battles ever. Especially not against radio. Absolutely not.
But here, in my opinion, I think the '90s type of country is the absolute best country, in my opinion. Just because that's what my parents grew up on. That's all we really listened to,
Right.
and it was, and then to see it progress. But then you're like, well, you grow with the music, so you can't. I mean, you have the choice to like it or you have the choice to not like it, but I don't necessarily think you have the choice to say, that's not country. Sure, that's not your
Right.
type of country,
Right.
but it's not necessarily not country in general because they're still obviously talking about the same thing they talked about in the 60s, 70s, 80s,
Yeah. Yeah.
just in a different fashion, different vibe,
I
different generation. There we go.
I think 90s country had more like nutrients in it. Like
Absolutely.
you could live off of those songs. You know what I mean? They gave you something. They gave you bread, they gave you water, they gave you something. I don't feel like there's any substance might be too far, but there's definitely no nutrients going on in what's on country radio right now, in the 2000s, but that might just be a generational perspective that you and I agree on that 90s was
Right.
cooler and better.
Right.
But I do think I've been really interested with the current country music thing right now because I just feel like at some point people are going to get hungry. You know what I mean? Like we're just hearing the same breakup truck songs over and over and over again. And I need substance. I need nutrients. I need that stuff. And I'm thirsty and I want country music to come back around with stories and morality and like those kinds of things. I miss that.
Yeah, and it's like I tell people all the time, they're like, well, I don't necessarily enjoy the who is some new guy like Florida Georgia Line type of people, Sam Hunt type of people, and I'm like, well, that's fine, but you have John Party,
Mhm.
Justin Moore, all these people
Yeah,
trying to keep it alive. You
you
know what I
got
mean? And
Texas.
Justin Moore is probably right there exactly, and it's just a big rabbit hole that sometimes I don't like to go down because if I do, like, because I know a lot more about music. Like, I'm a big music nerd. I
Mhm.
know probably everything about a lot of bands, just from my stupid research that I do for no, like, I know stupid facts that nobody needs to know or
I
wants to
love
know.
that though, and
I
I bet
find
the
that
artist is
I
grateful
find it
for it.
I find it interesting, but a lot of people find it boring. But I'm also sitting here like, okay, I know this and this about this, so you can't necessarily say Sam Hunt's not country because if you go back to his roots, he was born in Alabama, which is probably as country as you could get. But he also wrote that "I Met a Girl" from William Michael Morgan, and people are like, "Well, I don't like how he sounds poppy." Well, have you heard this? And it's just like, "Yeah, I've heard it. I love that song." Well, you know who wrote it? Well, I don't like that song no more. Just because they're scared of change and they're scared of
Yeah.
like I it's like I know so much about music that I know secrets or just backside of the industry of how it works. It's like if I was to reveal some of it, I would probably get in trouble just because a lot of people don't want you to know this. And it's just that's why sometimes you just gotta keep your mouth shut a lot of times. I feel.
I don't like that you feel that way, and I hate that you feel that way. And I don't know if this is specifically what you're talking about, or if you're talking about like some of the deeper industry stuff. But like, let's just talk
Right.
about prices
Deeper
for a
industry
second.
stuff.
Like, freaking prices for a second. Like, I went to school in Nashville, got a degree in songwriting and music business, and never once did that school sit you down and go, "This is the budget you're going to need for a serious radio single."
Yep.
Why don't we do that? And then someone gets a hundred
Yep.
thousand streams on social media on Spotify, and you go, "Hey man, how'd you do that?" They're like, "Ah, put your head down, keep grinding." It's like, no, just tell me
Yeah.
how you got on editorial
Exactly.
playlists. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
that makes me
Exactly.
so mad because I'm like, everybody should have an equal chance to excel. And yeah, you've got to get in and grind and do your work and figure stuff out yourself. But like, why can't anybody in Nashville help each other out? Like genuinely help each other out and be like, "Hey, this is what I paid for this. This is who I used. You don't have to do it this way. You can do it your way, but this is at least what I did." It's so frustrating
I
because
don't
like it's just frustrating. Go ahead.
I was talking like deeper industry stuff, but I agree 100% because it's kind of like that with the podcast. They're just like, man, you got to keep grinding, and I'm like, well, what am I grinding towards? Like, how
Yeah,
am I supposed to keep this grind? Because
yeah,
if I'm grinding this way, what if I'm supposed to go to the left and I'm grinding to the right? And it's like,
right.
I need you to tell me you don't have to break it down, but at least
Yeah,
tell me what steps I need to take in order to keep that grind going because you can grind so much and just grind out and just say screw it, it's too
yeah,
hard. But because it's kind of like I don't know if you feel like this, but podcasts in a way are evolving as well, and
yeah.
it's kind of like I've been independent podcaster for so long, and then it's like somebody just pops up as like a big celebrity. I want to start a podcast, and all of a sudden they're number one, and they just blow past you very quickly,
Yeah.
no matter even though they do have recognition, but they don't have recognition in the podcast game.
Right. And I think it's just so interesting. And go back to the grinding thing for 2 seconds. It's like in
Yeah,
Nashville specifically, probably anywhere, But in Nashville specifically, you can work your tail off for day in, day out for years and years and years and years. And you you just do that, right? And you take that vein and you can take your success and you can write it down, right? And then you can take a year and put 10 grand behind a song. You'll accomplish more in that year than you've accomplished in 7 years of working really hard. You know what I mean? Like, music does not work without money backing it. And there are some people who really, really, really stand out as outliers like that, especially as independent artists. And in Upchurch, he really stands out in that vein of really being able to fund stuff himself and doing all that networking, staying independent. Cody Johnson is another artist that had a really amazing run as an independent for so long. Did he probably stretch his career out 5 or 6 more years longer than it needed to be where he is now? Absolutely. Ashley McBryde did the same thing, but they held on to who they were, and I think there shouldn't always be that compromise between those two, but I just think it's so funny how kids move to this town every day to do music and no one's going to tell them the basic things that like they need to know. They're just going to tell them to keep working and writing and networking. And it's just, I don't know. I get so frustrated.
Well, I get frustrated at this because it's like my business partner, he also runs a podcast on my production company, and he was, man, we have to move to Nashville. Everybody's there, and I'm just sitting there like, but why do we honestly need to move there? What just because we can have you in studio here? Like, you understand? Like, we didn't start there, so I have a firm foundation here where I'm at. Everybody knows I'm the podcast guy. Die famous in a small town, take it as you will, but it's like, why am I going to move somewhere where I have a strict foundation, everybody knows where I'm at, I'm making money, what I'm doing, and you just pack it up and leave just so you can have somebody in studio? You know what I mean? Like, that's just where I'm at.
You might have to eat your own words here and just say that you're comfortable. You're comfortable.
Right.
And you don't want to move out of that moment that you're in.
Exactly.
But if where you're at sustains you and does all that shit, go for it, stay there. But, growth does happen from pressure, like we talked about, and those kinds of things.
Right.
Because you're right, you could come here and become one podcaster out of probably 20,000 podcasters.
Exactly.
But then you could also move here and become the best well-known podcaster out of 20,000 podcasts.
Right.
You're right. So it's just, I think it just depends on what you want. I think that's what everything in life comes down to is what do you want?
You're right. You're putting blocks in a scale and figure out which side's going to go higher than the other,
I feel that way between artistry and songwriting.
Right.
I could be a songwriter for the rest of my life and get really, really big success, hopefully, and be able to take my kids to amusement parks and go to their football games and do all those kinds of things. Or I can be an artist and I can do really, really well for myself. And I can make that decision to have a family one day. And my kids will always wonder why there's people outside of our gate, or why we go to the grocery store and it takes us 3 hours instead of 45 minutes, or why someone else goes grocery shopping for us. It's like you got to pick what you want. And it's tough, but every industry is that way.
You're right. And it's like, what makes you happy? If you're happy being behind the scenes, which is just what I love. I want to do something in music my whole life. And I was like, but I don't want to be straightforward. I want to be in the background where you're, I was looking at an old Aerosmith record back in like middle school, and I'm like, I want to know who this guy is right here. I don't know what he is, but he makes this album sound great. And that's what I wanted to do. And I just knew so much that I knew the music industry was where I wanted to be. So I figured radio's dead basically anyways, and podcasting is now the new radio in my opinion. So it was like, well, why not? But it's all about, if you're happy being a songwriter and it makes you incredibly happy, you don't hate yourself when you wake up in the morning, why not do it? But if you're killing yourself and you're being like, man, I could sound really good singing this song, then the truth is you probably want to be an artist.
Yeah.
Deep down.
Yeah.
And it's like, which one do you want? Again, the blocks in the scale.
Yeah. So interesting.
So you mentioned you mentioned Halloween, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm not trying to. You mentioned Halloween. Are you a fan of Halloween? Is that your favorite?
I love Halloween, and this is our year for Halloween. It is the only good thing that will happen out of 2020. There's full moon. It's on a Saturday. What else? There's one other thing about Halloween this year that I'm stoked about. I love Halloween.
Corona?
I guess. But no, it is. It's like it's like a full moon, super moon. It's on Saturday. I'm seeing Randall King the night before. That wasn't one of the 3 that has to do with Halloween, but I'm very excited about it. I love Halloween. I love it so much.
Oh, It's my favorite holiday. I don't know if you can consider it a lot of people don't consider it a holiday, but
It's
I
a
do, just
holiday.
because it's a holiday.
It's a
I
holiday.
love the fact that there's going to be horror movies on all month long, which you can watch whenever. But for me, it's the feeling of
Yeah.
the slasher films. Like, I cannot stand the psychological horror movies. To me,
Mm.
they're just
I don't
so
like the
bland.
paranormal ones. Eh.
I enjoy the Michael Myers, the Freddy Krueger, the Friday the 13th. I love those, and that is the time to watch them. And it's just, I love being scared. I love going into like haunted houses and just people freaking you out. I love that feeling of the adrenaline rush, and it's like that's the time to do it. So October is like Halloween week here on the podcast. So it's just like boom, 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 boom. And it's just you can't not love it.
I'm the total opposite. I hate being scared. I hate scary movies. I
Oh,
used
really?
to love them. I
But you
used
like
to watch them
Halloween?
like, my reason for liking Halloween's a little wonky, but I used to watch like scary movies like constantly when I was a kid, and I love
Mhm.
them. And then I went to a haunted house once, and I was so scared. I was so scared. But like, um, it's so funny you brought up Michael Myers. I have really bad dreams. I always have my whole life for some weird reason. And for
Yeah.
the last 3 nights, I've been trying to get the upper hand on Michael Myers, and it's been making me so mad. Like, for some reason, the last 3 nights, I've been having these dreams, and I always dream like lucidly or whatever. And it's kind of like if you saw that Happy Death Day or whatever, that horrific, stupid,
Yeah.
scary movie was, where she keeps waking up or whatever. That's like how I feel in this dream. Where now I'm just angry. I'm not scared of him anymore, but tonight might be my night, and I'm gonna get him. But that was my first scary movie I ever watched when I was a kid, and it definitely traumatized me. It was awesome. I loved scary
Who do
movies
you
as a kid.
who do you think is the absolute horrifying serial or horror film serial killer that just absolutely terrifies you, but it terrifies you so much that you love it?
Either Michael Myers or I think Freddy's really, really terrifying just because I have bad dreams. Like the thought of like just that whole concept of him like just sitting here. I also have narcolepsy, so I fall asleep all the time. So the fact
Okay.
of Freddy just sitting here like you're gonna fall asleep at some point, you literally don't have a choice, and I'll get you then.
Yeah.
Just makes
Yeah.
my blood boil, and it freaks me out. When I was a kid, Darkness Falls really tripped with me because I was afraid of the
Is
dark.
that about the tooth fairy where it would
I
come,
think it's
or
like the tooth
is
fairy,
that
but
what
it's
that is
like as
about?
soon as I think it's once you lose your last baby tooth or something,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And like
Yeah.
anytime you step into total darkness, you're gone. And I was so
Yeah.
scared of that when I was a kid.
That's for me. It'd be like I love the Freddy Krueger aspect, but I think it was just so scary back in those days that they had to add some comedy to it. And for me, like I don't know if you've seen like the Jeepers Creepers, like
Yeah,
early two
I've seen the
thousands.
one.
Those those to me are the most absolute scariest movies you can watch. But I watch them back to back to back.
Oh, I still
It's
can't
just
run
this
through a
weird.
cornfield. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Can't run through a cornfield ever. Ever in
Yeah.
my life. Nope. Can't do it.
But have you? I want to. You don't watch horror movies. I don't really consider this a horror movie that I'm going to tell you. But I want you, if you want, you don't have to watch this movie. It's on Netflix. It's called Terrifier. It's about. A lot of people say clowns are scary, but to me, it's a man dressed up in a clown suit murdering people,
Okay.
and it's really just about a serial killer kind of
Yeah.
dressed up as a clown murdering people. I don't think it's scary. I remember I watched it with my mom and my sister, and they were so horrified they slept in the same bed with each other that night. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, "All right, I'm going to bed. Turn the TV
Well,
off, turn
knowing
the lights off. I'm
myself,
going
I'll
to bed."
probably be like your mom and your sister. But I'll watch the trailer. I do really enjoy watching
Yeah.
movies sometimes with the sound off, and I know that's really lame, but like sometimes watching
Well,
scary movies with the sound off's pretty great.
well, here you go. Here's with this. The guy's name, Art the Clown, and he's speechless. He's like a mime, so he doesn't even talk in the movie.
Really?
So you got to yeah.
Mine's all
And
of
what's
like
cool
the
about it is
right before something scary happens. Like mine's all the
yeah
theatrical sounds that get
that
you. I
doesn't
just want
happen.
those to
Yeah,
be off. I just want them to be off.
that doesn't happen in these movies. And
Really?
what is great about it is I was talking about the movie on the podcast one time, and I'm like, they're making a second one, yada yada, and then the people hit me up. They're like, "Hey, you like the movie? Why don't you interview the main guy that does Art the Clown?" And so like I'm sitting there like, okay, so like Saturday, it's like, okay, I got Art the Clown on Saturday. I have to be, like I got to rewatch him, and I have to do this because if not, he's not gonna. It's
Right.
just one of those things about
Right.
movies that it's just like that's like it's like having Robert Englund on from the Freddy Krueger. You would just be terrified because you don't know what the guy looks like, but what if he
Yeah,
actually looks like Freddy Krueger?
right? That'd be terrifying. But Halloween with my family, so um
Mhm.
my parents were really well known back home, and Halloween was the one holiday that I could go out in public with my family. You know,
Right.
Halloween was the one holiday where we could dress up and be a normal family and go out and trick or treat. And it was the most special thing for me as a kid. So, like, I'm in love with Halloween. I think about my costume for like 6 months and like just love it. And I really, really, I don't know, I'm crazy about Halloween. My husband's like the opposite. So he'll wake up on Halloween and just look at the closet and be like, what can we make? And I'm over here like, you are a disgrace to this holiday, like with literally whatever all over me. Like, I love getting dressed up and just going out. And like, Nashville's really fun for Halloween. But that was kind of what Halloween like bloomed for me as a kid. I just loved it. I could go and do stuff with my parents, and we weren't bugged and we
Yeah.
weren't bothered, and it was awesome. It was really awesome.
So I obviously know what one of the biggest questions you get all the time in any interview because I've read it. So I'm not gonna bring none of that up in
Cool.
this interview. I just want to be strictly just you. So, but what is one question that you just like? Okay, I'm going to this interview, but I want to get asked about this, and they never ask you. What is something you want to talk about that they never talk about, just because it doesn't fit with the musical
Right.
aspect, which I
I think
think we've
there's
we've
a
veered from that enough.
that's fine. I think that the one thing that like so music's obviously my life, but there's another part of me that's just like equally as big as music, and I think about it every day. And music honestly is it's one of those things where I love music and I'm going to use it as a business, and I'm going to hopefully do really really well and do really really well for myself so that my husband and I can then turn around and put all of our money back into either a wildlife sanctuary or um, just rehabilitation projects or whatever it is. So my family back home is a part of this wildlife rehabilitation clinic called Wild Heart Ranch. We take care of all the local wildlife in Oklahoma, and I've worked in that clinic since I was a kid. Um, and I love animals. So like my plan B, which everyone's like, if you have a plan B, you don't believe in your plan A. And I'm like, nah, plan A is getting me to plan B, and it's gonna be awesome. But one day, if music ever breaks my heart or anything like that, I'm gonna run away to South Africa and I'm gonna become a black mamba. And I'm so excited about it. They are this all-female anti-poacher group in South Africa, and they just protect the pride lands. They just go and take care of poachers and get rid of them and take down their snares and do civil arrests and all those kinds of things. And I would love to be a part of something that protects one, our natural climate and topography of the earth as it is and should be, and then also just taking care of like animals and being a part of something much much bigger than Allie Colleen, you know, and that kind of thing. And I love animals. I just think they're the coolest thing on the planet.
What do you think? What do you think about like what are your views on zoos? Like because a lot of people are like I don't want zoos because they the animals should be in their own environment. But then I'm sitting there like, well, that's true, but also I can look at it that way, but I can also look at it as they have a longer life to live here in this however big the cage is than they do outside of natural habitat because of people like poachers and hunters that wanted to kill lions and stuff like that when they're when the zoos are keep we don't know what the zoos do outside of visiting hours. This I don't want to know because we've seen all Joe Exotic. I don't want to know.
Well, and
But
that's the actual problem is you need to know. So this is exactly how I feel about zoos. In one sentence,
okay.
go into it is I want to go to all of them. I want to go to all the zoos, and as soon as I leave, I want them to
Uh,
shut down. You know, like because I love zoos. I
yeah.
love that childhood, just like circuses, right? Like I love that childhood thing of getting to go and see these animals up close that otherwise I would never run into in my life. You know, and those kinds of things.
Mm.
But with the same thing, there's a lot of zoo models out there that are absolutely amazing. I mean, the Australia Zoo itself that the Irwins run is amazing and it's educational and it's basically a species protection project. That's what the entire zoo is, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
they're conserving these species and they're breeding and they're doing all those things, but they're also personally invested in the health of the animal and all those things. So I think there's definitely ways to
Yeah.
like run zoos a proper way. Like the Nashville Zoo, for instance, is starting to open, like they've opened a clinic in the middle of the zoo that they've been working on where kids can walk in and see like interactive surgeries with animals. So like whatever the animal needs, if it's being rehabilitated, if it's a simple spay, you know, like whatever it is, the kids
Sure.
can see it and they're seeing animals as something different than what I saw animals as a kid in the zoo, which was something behind glass. You know what I mean? And there, so I think there's a really cool education thing for zoos to do that teaches kids why these animals are here for either a breeding project or be protected or those kinds of things. Not so much as let's go out in the wild and capture this really awesome caribou and stick it in this pasture so kids can look at it and throw their popcorn at. You know what I mean? So I think there's a really cool way to do zoos. I think it takes exponentially more funding than zoos already took. And that's really, really hard. But you see those zoos in other countries, and I'm sure we have some in America that just no one ever sees. But you see those zoos
Right.
in other countries where the bears are just begging for food, you know, like they don't have the money at the zoo to take care of the animal. There's that carnival off of the coast of, I want to say like the Florida, like Cuba area, like in the Gulf of Mexico, where that dolphin has been in her tank for 3 years,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and she's sunburnt to hell because her tank's not deep
Yeah.
enough to get away from the sun, and she's just been left there. Like that's excruciatingly painful for me to think about. Like, so there's a lot of things in respect to animals that we need to fix, but I think ultimately like animal education, if I wouldn't have had that in my childhood, I would have never fell in love with animals. So I think there's just good and bads that I don't know what scale wins, but I love animals.
Yeah, and you bring up like circuses. Like I just finished P.T. Barnum's autobiography. He written like the late 1800s, and it's a shame of how the movie The Greatest Showman portrayed this man. He was a liar, a narcissist, a racist, a sexist. He was terrible, and it's weird because how the entertainment world projects these people that they know are terrible, but they're not getting the full story through. And I think the same thing with like zoos. Like a lot of people think zoos are there and they're rescuing animals, but in actuality, you know, in the back of your head, if that lion is protecting his food, his lamb or whatever he's eating, and you go to it, the lion's probably going to attack because he's a wild animal. And then what are they going to do? They're going to put it down for being what it is, you know.
Right.
And I kind of have the same aspect you do, but not with animals. Mine is kind of in the foster care home system because, and I look at it as this way. And I'm not trying to take the spotlight. I'm just trying to connect between us two. And it's kind of, I was having this vision because I was listening to Armchair Expert Dak Shepard's podcast, and he had Ashton Kutcher on, and he was talking, and I just had this vision of why can't the foster care people, like for example, if a woman is out there and selling her body or doing whatever because she's single, her parents don't want nothing to do with her because she had kids with a man they didn't like, the dad's left, she's by herself, but she has to make money somehow, so she starts selling her body, and then pretty soon everybody figures it out, and the caseworkers are like, oh no, that's not going to happen, and she's just making $400 a month just to pay the house note, and you're like, how cheaper would it be, instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars per kid to put them in a foster care, to take the $400 a month, put them on help, government help, funding, and pay the $400 a month for the bill. That way you don't have to worry about her doing that anymore. And it's just the fact of also, you know, like there is no registry nationally. Like why can't you take the kids and make some kind of a national registry to where, okay, sure, somebody's going to say, I'm their Aunt Karen, but honestly, how rare is it for some aunt to say, yeah, that's never met their kids, and just be like, hey, I want to take them just because they're my brother's kids, you know? But it's like, why can't they create some kind of a registry or some kind of something that will connect the child to this next of kin that's really going to take care of it, instead of putting them and splitting them up in a home? Because multiply like 500, 600,000 kids go in foster care a month.
Yeah.
A year, like United States alone, it's like multiply that by $15,000-$20,000. I did that. There's a letter in that number. I can't pronounce that number.
Right.
And it's like, It's cheaper to just do this and spend $150,000 on all of this instead of $150,000 per kid.
Yeah.
And it's something that an idea that was progressed that I just pushed it out. I was like, let's. I'm not going to stop until this vision or something is done about it, because I was honestly reading something about the foster care system, and it was like, it hurt me. It was like, man, they really are terrible at it. And it's like, why can't we make this better? We can make movies way better than they were in the 40s. We could at least make the foster care or the homeless center better than what it is. Better than what
I
it
love
was.
that you care about the foster care system. I don't know anything about it. I know that, like, my biggest thing that I hear about the foster care system is how bad the family placements are. And I
Yeah.
also didn't realize that you got paid to foster a child. You
Yeah.
made money off it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that works tax wise or if you literally get a payment for taking in a child. But I don't want to say there shouldn't be a reward, because then I feel like it would completely lessen the available homes for these kids to go to. But
Yeah.
I do think like you can't put a monetary value on raising a kid. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that sets you up for failure to be like, well, I'm getting paid, so I'll do it. I feel like we need more people who are like,
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid, I'm going to love this child. But I know that significantly lessens the amount of foster homes that would be available, because people need money. Kids are expensive,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know anything about the foster care system, but I love that that's what you're thinking about. I love that's where your heart is. And I think that there's so much stuff to be done in any children program in the US, world alone, but we're so behind on the mental health progression in the States. America doesn't have a clue how to treat like mental disorders that are as simple that like from child abuse and all those things. We're so behind on like the mental health programs that like the UK has and those kinds of things for
Well,
students.
it's not only that, but it's also very expensive. Like take like a person coming out of the military and they got PTSD. I mean, or anybody that has PTSD from any kind of stress disorder. And it's just like, it is so expensive to go see one of these therapists. And it's just like, why can't the government take over and be like, look, you did this, you're having this trouble, we're going to pay, because they're going to get it back in tax anyways. So
Right.
what does it honestly matter? Because they helped you become what it makes my head itch just thinking
I
about it.
know.
It's just,
It's so
it's terrible.
frustrating. And I don't know anything about it. I'm so ignorant to all of it, but I'm got a lot of empathy for people, and I'll never understand their situations, but that just breaks my heart.
What is like a stress reliever to you? For me, like, it used to be food, but since I started doing this yoga and started losing, this going on this diet, losing this weight, it's now more because I always love to read and always love listening to music. So it's more or less like, okay, I'm gonna get a much more harder book than, or not harder, but a book that would not interest me, because I'm more of a memoir autobiography type of guy. But I'm like, I'm gonna get this book and I'm gonna read it, but then it just stresses me out even more because it's terrible and I don't understand it. I don't like
Yeah.
it. So then you're just like, I'm just gonna listen to John Mayer,
Yeah.
So what's your stress reliever?
My stress reliever is I'm a worker. I'm a doer. I've got to do stuff. So I really
Okay.
love, like, if I'm mad, you'll probably find me like in my flower garden, like in my flower beds or something, or whatever. But I love horseback riding. I think horses are the greatest thing ever, and it just really helps you. Like, for me, I think probably horseback riding is probably my number one stress reliever. And then I just love like sitting and diving into new music. I think that's really special. It takes my mind off of like whatever's happening for me, and I can just dive into that new album or whatever it is, and those kinds of things. But I find that I'm really, really bad at finding something that isn't work productive. I'm really, really bad at that. I'm sitting here like, because my husband watches TV, not like all the time, but like if he wants to relax, he's gonna put something on the TV, and he's always like,
Right.
"What do
Same
you want
with
to
me.
watch?" And I'm like, "Bro, I don't watch stuff. Like there's stuff to get done. I don't watch things." So I'm really bad, genuinely, at just relaxing. But I am lucky in that sense that music is what I do. So when I'm working, I'm at least really, really, really enjoying what I do. So I'm actually really bad at kind of cutting back and relaxing, but horseback riding always does the trick.
What do you think in your mind is the greatest? Um, you mentioned Star Wars before Halloween, so are you a Star Wars fan?
I love Star Wars, but like I don't like. I couldn't sit with someone who really loves Star Wars and have a Star Wars conversation. You know what I mean?
Me
But I like
too.
to watch it.
Me
I like to
too.
watch. Yeah.
Me too. Like it's kind of
Started The
like
Mandalorian on
it's
Disney
like
this week. I like it.
I haven't watched it yet, and I'm the same way you are. It's like I it took me. I just watched the movies probably 6 months ago, just because
Really?
it was just the biggest thing that they were talking about. I was like, it can't possibly be that good, and they were honestly really good. But
Okay.
it's I'm not a Star Wars fan enough to wear a shirt, to hang a poster up.
Yeah.
I'm not. I can't have a comment if you're like, yeah, do you remember over there on this one where they did scene 16 over here on stage B? No, I don't. I don't know that. I don't really care.
Well, and just
I don't
talking
care
about
about
like
that.
talking about the rebellion and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and it's really hard for
I,
me to like really
yep.
understand what the sequence of those movies were. Like I don't have a clue what the
Mm,
sequence is. I don't know if you're supposed to watch it the way they prefer you to, starting with like 5 or
right.
whatever, or if you should do 1 through 8 or however many there are. Like I really don't know, but I
Right.
do love to watch the movies. I like that
See,
kind of
that's
stuff.
me with Marvel. It's like
Okay.
Marvel, in my opinion, is the greatest movies. I'm a big superhero nerd, just movie wise. I don't really care for comic books that much, but
Yeah.
and I'm like, they came out with like Iron Man, then they did Thor, Captain America, and you're like, you're not allowed to watch them that way. Well, put them out and release them how I'm supposed to watch them.
Yeah. That's how I feel about that.
Like if I'm supposed to watch Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 before I watch Thor 1, 2, well, put 1, 2, and 3 of Iron Man out before you put the other ones out, because then I'm just
Yeah.
gonna get confused.
Yeah. Because I feel like the Avengers was what really, really finally hooked me on Marvel superheroes. And then obviously you
Yeah,
got to backtrack hard from the Avengers to like go back and get the whole.
bad. Yeah,
So I love those.
and
Like I said, I am not gonna like have a Iron Man conversation with an Iron Man fan because I won't be able to
right,
like. But
right.
I love those
Me,
movies.
me neither. Me neither. I'm not me either. I'm the same boat. I really love watching them. I'm a nerd, but I'm not a big enough nerd to tell you what's happened
Yeah.
and explain everything from the thing.
My
But
sister goes to the conventions. Um,
oh wow, really?
and those kinds of things. And then she like dresses up for like totally opposite thing, but like the WWE conventions and those kinds of things. But like she's all into all of those things. Like she knows the progression and all this stuff of everything.
Yeah.
Um, it was so funny when everyone was freaking out about the Little Mermaid and the casting of the Little Mermaid. If you remember, like the live
Oh
action
my
one,
God.
and everyone
Yeah,
was
that was.
freaking out about it. And I thought I thought I had a really good argument. I was like, bro, it'd be like if they remade, you know, if they remade Guardians of the Galaxy and Gamora wasn't green. You know, it's just like what you expect. It like has nothing to do with whatever. And then my sister goes, Gamora's from, and just went off on like Gamora's history. As and I was like, crap, I didn't expect you to do that. I don't know what planet she came from. I don't know how that works. but like you said, I like the movies. I can hang long enough to watch a movie.
I honestly thought about the Little Mermaid thing that it was a little ridiculous. People were complaining about it. Who
Yeah.
cares? Like, my honest opinion, who cares? Like, are you really going to care about that tomorrow? You're gonna wake up and be like, I'm in a bad mood because I'm making a Little Mermaid black. I don't care. That's like the Dixie Chicks. They're the chicks now. People
Yeah.
are complaining. It took Dixie.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? I don't. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. I don't
Right.
care. Like,
Right.
their decision, not mine. And you can't fuss about someone's decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I just thought it was silly, and which we still have yet to even see a trailer, right? Like, what happened? Like, is there a live action one or not? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, with this Corona thing going on, I don't think we'll be able to watch a movie for a long time in the theaters.
That's true.
Or have a concert. Like, here's what's weird is Kiss, one of my favorite bands of all time, is coming here in like September or October. And I'm like, I'm dying to go, but I'm also scared to go because it's like, what if somebody there does have Corona? And then because it's
not a what if, they're going to.
right, and it's like
Yeah.
there's you don't have to have a mask to enter. You don't have to have it, and I'm just like, okay, Paul Stanley, let's just take a step back real quick. You and Gene Simmons need to get in order. You need to just stop the tour.
Stresses me out.
I know it is, and I'm just like, well, this is their final tour, and I guess I'm going to have to miss it. Like, it's just like I've never seen it before. I'm just gonna have to miss it. I'm sorry. I'd much rather have my health than see a final concert.
And just not be responsible for maybe harming someone else's health. You know what I mean? Like,
you
get it from there. There's
go.
telling who you're gonna do it, and that's what frustrates me the most about this Corona thing. Like, I don't know if this was like, if anyone outside of Nashville would know that this happened, but there was a party last weekend, I think. Yeah, because it was last Saturday. There was a party in Nashville last Saturday at an Airbnb, and over 900 people were there. And it was
Oh
huge.
man.
Made all the news, and it was a lot of industry people from Nashville. It was a lot of celebrities. It was a lot of stuff. So
Are we
many
talking
stories
about
like,
are you
I
talking
don't
about
know
the
what it's
Chase Rice
called.
concert?
It was literally just a house party.
Okay.
Wasn't
Okay.
it? Like, it
Okay.
was
Okay.
just a house party, and like 800 or 900 people showed up, and it was all over the place in here. But it's just like, doesn't everybody understand that everybody wants to have a house party? Like, we all want to have our friends over. Like, we all want to go do stuff, but it's literally affecting other people's health to go and do it. Like, can't you just not for like 2 months? If Nashville would just literally shut down for a month or two, which I get financially might not be feasible, but people are dying. Like, if you would just
Yeah.
shut down, we could get past this. I mean, I know everyone
Well,
thinks that like on election day it's going to be over anyway, but like, it's such a weird thing that's happening right now, and it's so frustrating. Like, I would have loved to have been at that party, but you're not going to go. Like, just like you said, you would love
yeah.
to see Kiss. You never have before. But if you're not even going to require masks, like, that's stupid. Whether they work or
And
not.
I and here's the thing, I don't know how the legalities work on this, but couldn't somebody get corona and then say they got it from Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons,
Oh
or
yeah,
Eric Carr?
absolutely.
You know, just be like,
Absolutely.
oh, he passed by me in the audience and I heard him cough, and the next thing you know in the morning I wake up I'm sick. Like,
Or regardless,
I
you
don't know
could
how
sue
that
a
legal.
production company, easy. You know, it's
Exact.
like
That's what I'm
easy.
saying. Like,
The venue, there's tons of people to sue, whether it's Paul Stanley or not. You know, like, it's really
but
not smart.
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's really not smart on their part to put it on. Yeah, that's
It's
insane.
but and I'm also like, the people are like, I just, I don't like when people are like, they're taking my freedom because I'm having to wear a mask, if it works or not. I honestly don't think so, but no matter what anybody else thinks, isn't aren't they taking your freedom because they're trying to keep you safe? Regardless of what you know what I mean? That's
Right,
what,
right,
regardless of what anybody
right.
thinks, like, I don't know you, but personally, but you could just be hardcore Republican and just be like, no, they're taking my freedom and they're my flag, you know. But then it's
Yeah,
like, but we've made you happy for so long that what, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
it's
Well,
just
even
a
more
whole
than
other
that,
rabbit hole.
anybody who says that, anybody who's going to put that phrase, "or taking my freedom" in front of the mask issue, their freedom has never been compromised in their life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they don't have a clue what it would be like to really have any kind of suppression on them, right? And we can all assume the group of people I'm talking about. They've been on top forever. They've never had their freedom questioned. And so I think if you can't for a second think about other people's freedom, like the grandparent that's going to be lost when their respiratory system
Right.
shuts down. You know, it's like there are tons of people, myself included, who have had the virus and it was a piece of cake, not a big deal, whatever. Like, if I got it tomorrow, I'd survive.
But
But there's
but we're
also
also young.
so many people that have passed away, and it's like, have some empathy for other people. Good God. I just feel like 2020 has really shown just like, I just feel like we're like a really selfish people right now. Like, just can't even think about like just the inconvenience of putting on a mask to go
Yeah.
into Kroger when like that could possibly save somebody's life. And maybe it won't too. Like, my husband
We
uses this
don't know.
reference
Right.
all the
You're right.
time. This is my husband's favorite thing. He goes, if you fart in a pair of jeans, everybody still smells it. Do the masks work? And I'm
Right.
like, bro, I don't know, but just wear the
Right.
mask.
You're right.
Just
You're
wear
right.
it.
Yeah.
Just wear
And
it.
it's also funny how, because I've cleaned up Facebook and Instagram because of these reasons, because I just see people complain, but I've also been really hard on preaching it, like, you need to do it, need to do it, need to do it, just because we can get over it and people can stop complaining if you just do it. Like,
Yeah.
I think Dr. Fauci said if we do this and we close down for like 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks, it's going to be over
Right.
in a month time span. So, and I'm preaching it, just do it, just get it over. And it's funny how bad family would just be like, screw you for saying that, you're out of the clique. And I'm just like, over a mask? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
what are you talking? It's like, it's something over than a mask. You
Yeah.
know, it's something more than that, but it's just,
It's like 2020 has been those conversations at Thanksgiving that drive families apart. Like, 2020 has been that
yep.
conversation at Thanksgiving, you know? And it's so crazy and it's so frustrating. But yeah, no, I'm
Have
over
you,
it. people just like counting you out because you don't agree. Like conversations are important. They're important. We should have them.
Like it's like I could have a very, very great discussion from all the research that I've had with someone that doesn't agree with my situation, and they would still come out and hate you. And it's just like, but I'm facing this on facts.
Right.
You're facing it on facts from your perspective. So how can you hate someone else's opinion? It's like an armpit. Everybody has an armpit.
Yeah.
They all stink from time to time.
They
And they all,
do.
they're all good from time to time.
Yeah.
But you mentioned family here earlier. I want to. Was there ever one time where you just had this big family fuss, and it was just like put tension on yourself?
Oh my gosh, every year, I feel like there's one big
Oh,
one
wow,
every year.
year.
But it's pretty consistent. It's actually very consistent. My family is predominantly women and very strong opinionated women. And as all the women start to get kids, they start to get really opinionated. You know what I mean? Because they're moms. I'm lucky to still be out of that wing and probably won't step into it for a really long time. But oh yeah, I think probably every time we get together, there is something. But we're also at this point, I would say we're really, really good at talking about it. Like my family, we're definitely going to get to where like I still don't agree with you and you're a horrible person, but I can see where you're coming from. Like we'll at least hook that on to the end of it. So yeah, that actually happens a lot. Me involved though, not so much. I do tend to kind of just hang back and sit there, just kind of watch.
So in an argument, I guess you just kind of answered that question, but in an argument, are you kind of the person that's just, hey, let's calm down, let's talk about it, let's find out what everyone's really or are you just like, no, screw you, I hate you for the rest of my life? Which one
I
are
don't
you?
really get like heated out of like reason over a lot of things. I would think if like the only thing that would probably make me do that would be the safety of one of my family members, like if that was questioned because of what we're arguing about, I can get pretty heated. But for the most part, we're really good at being like, we're loud. We're very naturally loud, but like, we're pretty much just like, I just don't agree with what you're saying. And you need to either explain it better or have a different opinion because it doesn't make sense. And like, that's kind of how we talk to each other. But, I don't know. I just feel like it's all depending on the argument. My dad always has this saying that, 6 ignorant people can sit and talk for hours, but you get one person who really knows what they're talking about and the conversation's not really there. So I find that most of the time my family and I are just bickering about stuff that we genuinely don't have a clue about, I don't know. I just try and stay out of it.
So are you kind of the person like, I'm just trying to get to know you kind of on a personal basis here. When you're out at a crowd, like you're not performing, you're just out. Like, are you the person that's gonna jump in the middle and be like, "Hey guys, my name is yada 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 yada. Let's do this," or are you the person that's because me, I'm in the corner looking at a corner. I'm not gonna talk to nobody until it's over with. So which one are you?
I'm going to find my station. I'm going to sit there and you can come to me as you want, like that's me. I'm definitely an introvert. For being an artist, I'm a hard introvert. I think that might be the
But
only
do people find it? But do people find because they've come to me and they're like, you're just a big dick, But it's obviously like, do they ever come to you and they're just like, but it's like, no, if you knew me, I'm all jippity jabbity on a podcast when I'm doing something.
Yeah.
But I like standing to myself because I don't want to bother somebody else.
If somebody comes to me, I'm
right.
My artist thing kicks in and I'm ready to go. I'm like, whatever you need, whatever. I do have nights where someone will come up to me and I'll be like, hey, I'm so sorry. My husband and I are just trying to eat and then we're going to go home. We've had a long day. What can I do for you? Like I'll still talk to them and do whatever they need, but I will preface that I ain't got all night and I'm not interested a whole lot right now. But I've just found with my personality, I'm one of those people that's going to click. Especially if I force the happy extrovert thing too hard, I'll just flip at one point and I'll say rude things and I'll probably burn a bridge, So I've learned to just be very honest with how I feel as you walk up to me, because it could be a Tuesday and I could want to talk to you for 12 hours, or it could be a Wednesday and I don't want to talk to anybody, So I just, as the day comes, I'm going to let you know how I feel when you walk up to me.
But I think that's fair from anybody's standpoint, and I think the celebrities are the ones that really get it dished at them. They're like, "You were a dick when I met you at Sam's Club or wherever." You're like,
right? And it's like you were screaming at me from 6 aisles away, like
right.
Yeah.
But I also take everything that I say and I look at it from both ways. Like, I could be like, okay, look, I understand. I kind of nerded out a little bit. I kind of freaked out a little bit, but you could have at least said, hey, but then it's also like, but I was probably bothering you. Nobody knew what happened when you woke up today. You could have had an argument with your
Right.
wife, your
Absolutely.
husband.
Absolutely.
Somebody could be dying in your family. But I'm also looking at it from another angle where I'm like, okay, first off, you knew from when you started that people are going to be coming up to you no matter what.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and you know what I mean? And it's like, that's like people that take, like, for Alfonso Ribeiro, let's use him for example, from Carlton from Fresh Prince. He's like,
Yeah.
I hate when people come up to me and they ask me to do Carlton. But you knew from this point that you were taking this character, you knew that it could possibly last 15 years if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And you know how the business works, so you know that you may not have another chance of getting another part of
Yeah.
your life. So, like, it's like, take it and run with it. And I think like the guys from Full House, I think they have taken that miraculous, like Bob Saget. Well, he was a known comedian, but like John Stamos or Dave Coulier, they lived that. They're like,
Yeah.
I'm Uncle Jesse, I'm Uncle Joey. That's what I'm known for, you know.
Yeah.
I just think people just have different perspectives on how they do it. But I just look from this way and that way, you know, thinking I'm
Yeah.
going to think positive, but I'm also going to think a little bit negative sometimes.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting, and from an artist perspective, like if we're talking about artists or celebrity of a person
Yeah.
in the public figure, the public eye, 100%, you made that choice. That's what we were talking about earlier with a songwriter. I know that as choosing to be an artist, if I get really successful one day, it's going to be weird for my kids, right? I know that, mainly because I've lived that life as a kid, but too, like, I know what choice I'm making. I know what I'm doing. I know that maybe I won't be able to go to Kroger super quick when I'm older, right? Or if I become super successful, and you make those decisions. I'm not trying to speak badly of anybody, but like just to say how it affects a fan, there's an artist in town here in Nashville that is always at this one bar. Always. Every day. Doesn't matter if it's noon, doesn't matter if it's 3 a.m. He's there. He's there every day and he's drinking. And some days it's Pepsi and some days it is absolutely nothing but liquor, you know. And I personally was a really, really big fan of this person, still am as far as their music. Don't vibe with their personality anymore, but I would walk up to him at a bar setting, and I'm just going to assume that if you're out, you want to be talked to, because otherwise you'd be drinking at home with your buddies, right? Like,
you're right.
Yeah, like, because I don't go to bars. I don't go out if I'm in a bad mood. If I'm in a bad mood, I'm going to tell my friends to come over to my house and we're going to drink at my house, you know, or we're going to do a game night at my house, you know, like those are the decisions you make at such a low caliber that I'm at. Those are still the decisions that I make. And this person is a very well-known, huge celebrity, and they're so mean to you when you walk up to them. They're so mean. And it doesn't matter who you are. I've watched women walk up to him. I've watched dudes walk up to him. I've watched kids walk up to him. And you can always tell that he's like, what do you want? And it's just like, why are you out here? Like, you made this decision to come. And you're right. You could be having a horrible morning. You could have lost your grandma. Why are you out in public? Like, these are the sacrifices you make when you decide to be a celebrity.
But it's also like, okay, your grandma died. Wouldn't you want someone, instead of saying, I'm sorry for your loss, they don't know nothing about it. They just come up and try to cheer you up, just say how big of a fan you like. You know what I mean? Like, right. I understand. And this person, I think I kind of know who you're talking about. I think it's the same guy who I'm thinking about, because I think this is the guy that's actually well known, like a C or B list artist, and he will take a song that a songwriter's written and we'll change one word and we'll get song credit for it. I think that's who we're talking about.
He might do that. I didn't know a lot of artists that do that, but yeah, fortunately for me, I have not met a lot of artists in Nashville that were mean or rude or anything like that, you know? So I think it's definitely few and far between, but just as a fan, walking up to him the very first time and him being that mean to me, it just breaks you, you know? And like, imagine if that was Kiss for you, you know? Imagine if you walked up to Kiss and they were assholes. That would just ruin everything. And I was lucky to where, like, I didn't hold him as high as, like, if Cody Johnson was mean to me, I would break. I'd be devastated.
Well,
but
this guy
really tough for a fan.
This guy, did his name start with a C, his first name?
Yeah, it does.
If not, okay, I think we're thinking about the same guy.
Yeah. And it's just tough.
But it's it's tough, and it's kind of like Eminem. Eminem will tell you, "Hey, look, I'm a prick. Don't come up to me. I'm a prick." That's different. I'm not gonna go up to Eminem if I see him because he tells me he's a jerk.
I don't think
So,
I would
but
either,
that's
and
like,
I love Eminem, and because I love
oh,
Eminem,
me
I
too.
don't think I'm messing with him. I don't think I want to talk to
You're
him.
he's gonna destroy you in point 0.6 seconds and have 98 words.
Yeah, breaking
uh,
records, breaking your heart. Yeah, that's
but
what would
I
happen.
I think it's different because if someone will say, "Hey, look, come up to me all the time. I'm a nice guy or I'm a nice lady," but you get that one time where they're just a jerk and you're just like, "Look, he said he was nice. Maybe I just called him at a bad time."
Yeah,
If I see him, I'm gonna, because that's happened to me. Like when I met, I'm not gonna say who, but I was meeting a person and they were just a total a hole. And
yeah,
I was like, well, they've always said that they were nice, so I'm not gonna get. And then next try we talked for like 15 minutes, and I'm like,
yeah.
see there, that's just. But it's different for people that say, you come up to me whenever, and they're just a dick every single
Right.
time, and it's like, you obviously don't want people coming up to you,
Yeah,
and you're taking your
yeah.
celebrity status to a whole nother level, which that aggravates me as well. It's like the paparazzi. That's their job to take pictures. Don't complain because they're following you. Obviously, it probably does get too much. I can see
Mhm.
that, but it's also like, but isn't this what you asked for when you moved to Hollywood?
Right.
It's
The
for the
paparazzi thing,
paparazzi to take.
because paparazzis and news articles and those kind of things, like you give them a scheduled time to show up and get their stuff, you
You're
know?
right, right,
So
right.
I do think artists can take the hat off, right? You know, like if I see Reese Witherspoon and her daughters at I think her kids are way too old to play sports now, but like if they're playing softball, I might at least just wait until there's a break in the game, right? Before I go up and talk to her if I'm for some reason at the same softball park as Reese Witherspoon, right? Because she's a mom that day. She's not Reese Witherspoon at the softball park, right? She's a mom. So I do think there are places and whatever to be respectful of that. But like you said, if Reese Witherspoon is at a doghouse in Nashville, I should be able to go and tell her I like her, and she should probably be kind of nice to me. You know,
Yeah,
hope.
and it's kind of like, no, and it's like there are rules and there are obligations to where you should not talk to a person, and it's like if they're eating with their kids, don't go up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be Prince
Yeah,
Charles. If they're, I
yeah,
doubt Prince Charles would be out, but it's like
I
if
know,
you're
right?
eating, don't go up there because I don't want somebody coming up to me and putting their hand over my food to shake my hand. I don't know. They could have scratched their butt just 10 seconds ago. Just like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get this guy. Watch this. You know.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're 100% right. So I do think there's those boundaries or whatever, but I think ultimately, just be a nice person, no matter who you are, famous or not. Be a nice person. Wear a mask.
Definitely wear a mask. Um, so I don't know how much time I don't know how much I scheduled for, but just real quick, if you don't mind, I want to ask you a couple more questions.
Absolutely.
Um, you were recently, a few months ago, were on the Bobby Bones show, and that is one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. One of my biggest heroes in life. So, what was that experience like going into that? Because I had someone on here that was on like the Tonight Show, and it was just a complete disaster. They hated it. They just they come out like Jimmy Fallon came out.
Yeah.
It was a big dick. I was an alcoholic the whole time. It was just like, wow, that ruined my perspective of the Tonight Show. So I'm
That
like, if
stinks.
I will just
Yeah.
it's it's really terrible. But yeah, so tell me, what was the experience of Bobby Bones like? When did you get the call and stuff like that?
Bobby Bones is really great. So I have a really interesting relationship with like the crew of the Bobby Bones show. So, you know, Ray, the
You
producer
are
that went on The Bachelor, you know, like, so
you are
Jonathan's husband went on that one. And then me and Laura, me and Bay, we're best friends. I'm her
right,
matron and those kinds of things. So,
right.
so I've been around the cast a lot. Bobby, however, you know, like doesn't make it to everything, right? So if like Ray and Laura have a brunch, like Lunchbox and Eddie will be there, but Bobby usually doesn't make it, you know, those kinds of things.
Right, right,
So all
right,
that to say, I don't have a personal relationship with Bobby at all.
sure,
But Hillary reached out to me, who works on the show, and she
right.
called me and she was like, "Hey Al, you know, like, um, Bobby heard about your first release and really wants to have you on the show. You know, can we make this kind of quick?" And I was like, "Bro, pick any day, like any day, I'll be there. I don't care what I have, I'll be there." And so we got scheduled within a couple days, and we went to record it. And I mean, it was just awesome. It was really great. They were very respectful of how I do things and how we don't talk about certain things and those kinds of things. And Bobby being such a fan of my family, I was really impressed that
Right.
he was able to limit it to one question, because he's literally a huge fan. And so he was just really respectful, really awesome. It took him forever to figure out the tattoo thing. If you watch the show, I thought that was so funny. I was trying to explain to him because he kept asking me how many tattoos I had. And I was like, well, if both my arms count as one, I have 17. And he goes, you've you've 17 what? And I was like, well, not arms, Bobby. Like, I have 17 tattoos. Like, it was so funny. And he was so funny in that sense of where I didn't think you could catch Bobby off guard on anything. And it took him, like, Amy and I were both like, bro, like 17. It was funny. It was just like hanging out with a good group of people. It was really nice. And I was really lucky to be like the second or third person in the new studio. At the time, it just fell that way, when they redesigned the Bobby Bones studio. So that was just really cool to just be on set and see it and those kinds of things. I loved it.
I kind of share the same experiences as he does with your family, and it's without saying any names, it's kind of like, well, if I was to meet your family, I couldn't do it because I would just totally nerd out. If that, you know what I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
Yeah.
I would just be like, well, you remember when you went over here, you did this over here? I bet you don't remember that. I bet you don't. It was just one
Yeah.
of those things that we
Yeah.
kind of
Well, I
connected with.
guarantee you, of all the
And
people, he would remember it. Whatever you throw at him, he's going to remember it. He remembers
oh,
everything.
really,
Yeah.
really.
hmm He remembers everything. He did ask me what age I was turning the other week on my birthday, but as far as music goes, he remembers everything. He was freaking out. Yeah, I guess he's like ahead of his schedule in his brain, and he thinks it's already 2021.
Yeah.
And he was praying over like my birthday meal, and right in the middle of it, he just looks up at me and he goes, "You're not 25, right?" I was like, "No, Dad, I'm 24." And he goes, "But it's an odd year, which means that all my sisters are turning odd ages because we're all 2 years apart." I was like, "No, Dad, it's an even
Right.
year because it's 2020." And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're 24." And then goes right back to praying. Just got right back into it. But he's so funny on what he will remember and what he gets confused about. But he'll remember almost anything you talk to him about career-wise. I guarantee it.
So, um, my brother's kind of the same way. He was born in 2000, so it's kind of easy. Like,
Oh,
whatever
that's
year it is,
crazy.
that's the year it is, and it's but I also want a few more questions here about. So obviously, I knew you just because I listened to the show. I knew you were kin to or friends or whatever it was with Ray and Bay. So I
Yeah.
knew you knew them. But to me, and I don't mean this in a rude way, but maybe it's just the way Ray is. But to me, he sounds like he's one of the punks. Like, does that
Yeah.
does that make sense? He kind of has that
Ray
vibe. Like he,
Ray and
but I've
Lunchbox,
heard he's the
when I
sweetest
listen
soul.
to the show, seem like douchebags. Like when I listen to the
Right,
show on air,
hundred
Ray and
percent, hundred percent,
Lunchbox, they're douchebags. They drive me insane,
hundred
whatever.
percent.
You get around them, they really are the kindest people ever. Ray does genuinely get drunk off like 2 White Claws, and he just gets loud. And that kind of thing. So he's an interesting person for me who's such an introvert to go out like in public with. Like when we go to brunch and stuff and he's like hollering and like being all crazy, I'm kind of like, ah, but they're super sweet. Like they're the nicest people ever. And they're very supportive of me and they're very good friends of ours. But they have their show personas, which is really interesting. But they're really genuinely
That's
really nice people.
that's my next question. I am sitting here, and I've wanted this for a long time. Me and you were on Big Shrimp Radio.
Yeah.
That's my business partner. Yeah, and here is my, I'm like, it's my theory. It's like the show. I think it's kind of like the Howard Stern show. There are fake characters, but there are also real characters inside these fake characters.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
does that make sense? But
Yeah.
without saying the show was fake, just like maybe Lunchbox is not really a dick. Maybe that's his on air, the microphone's on. I'm going to be the biggest prick you know.
Yeah, because if
But
everybody on that show was super, super nice, it wouldn't be as interesting
you're
to
right. You're right. You're right. That's where I'm sitting there, and they're like, and then Bobby's always like, these are the real characters of these real people, and it's like, well, if he didn't say that, everybody would be like, it's fake anyways. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. And they are, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's like ingenuine, like we all have our hats and our personas. So like obviously, like this might be a weird way to compare it, but like Kevin Hart is very crude in his comedy stand-up,
You're
right?
right.
Like
Right.
that's what he does, and he's funny and he's crude and all that stuff. He's not going to come into his parent-teacher conference for his kid and tell the teacher really crude and inappropriate jokes, or even use the language that he uses on stage. But that doesn't mean that the person he is on stage as a comedian isn't who he is, isn't a different type, like version of him. So I think the same way with like Lunchbox kind of sometimes being like, like just talking about on the Sore Losers podcast and all that stuff. I don't know if you listened to it, but like talking about the bachelor party they were going to go on, and he just kept making fun of everybody for like the decisions they wanted as far as hotel rooms or whatever it was or all that kind of stuff. It makes him seem like if you're trying to plan a trip with Lunchbox, he's going to shoot down every idea you have and do what he wants. But in reality, the bachelor party, Lunchbox was like, what does everybody want to do? Like, what works best for everybody? What can we afford? What's going on? Like, it's just show personas, but it's not at all like a fake identity, I don't think. But it is different than what you would expect in real life.
I think it would be awesome if Kevin Hart would go into his parent-teacher conference and they asked him a question, and he'd be like, why don't you mind your own damn motherfucker? That would be the most absolutely greatest thing I will ever see in the world. If that was to happen.
I feel like the teacher would feel the same way about it too as you feel about it. Like she'd be honored.
Yeah, it'd be like
he'd be floored.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Allie, I appreciate you coming on here.
Absolutely, I've enjoyed it.
And a half. Hopefully we treated you well here. Go ahead and give out all your whatever you want to promote, stuff like that. Take all the time you need.
You guys can listen to my music anywhere you listen to music. Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google Play if you got an Android, and I'm sorry about that. But you can listen to music anywhere you find it, those kinds of things. I've released a project last Friday. It's a 2-song concept album. Or just concept collection, and it's really special to me. So go check it out. Go check out Ain't the Only Hell, all those kinds of things. But you guys can always follow me on Allie Colleen Music. So ALLIECOLLEEN music, and that's all my socials and that kind of thing. So you guys can always find me. But seriously, thank you so much. Like I've had a blast. I think this is a great podcast. I love what you're doing. Enjoy it.
And I hope we took the musical aspect out of it and got to know you personally and talked about what you wanted to. Because I hate when people come on here and they're like, well, I've done this album this way and it's the biggest album in the world, and they're like, I'm pretty sure Michael Jackson got tired of saying, well, talk about Thriller.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know
mean?
listeners too. Like my listeners that actually follow interviews, they've heard my influences 700,000 times. They could list them all for me.
You're right, and that's what kind of irritated me. And in a good sense, I was, researching you, and it was like the same questions, and it was like, well, I knew the answer to Ain't the Only Hell, and I was like, I know the answer, but I have to ask because they asked me to promote it, and I'm like, but I knew what you were going to say, and it's just like, I don't like that in interviews. I like when they just chat and talk about what's on their minds, and I hope we treated you well here, and we did just that.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep, I'd love to have you back on sometime in the near future.
You bet. I'll be here.
All right. Thanks, Allie.
Yeah. Have a good one.
You too.